Okay, so in this video we'll show how this thing goes together. Mydal bunk bed. This is one of the ones that's made out of real wood, so it's a relatively nice, heavy-duty item. Stage one on the build is that we lay the pieces out in groupings, so we can get all the pieces together. 15 minutes, maybe 2.5 hours, just to get everything sorted, laid out. I like to do it according to length. We don't really unpack this until we begin to build, and then we'll go from there. So the main thing on this is to lay out what will be your two ends, so that you have the base for the rest of it. Now, what you're going to see is a bunch of these links, but they are all relatively different from each other. At the very top is going to be the ones with these holes, with this type of arrangement. These are going to take a long bolt, one of these kind of long pin bolts. If you don't see a hole like this, then it's dowel only. Now over here, where it takes two long bolts plus a dowel, is where things can get a little bit misleading, because this will bias up or down. You see how there's a little bit of a bias to that with a mark. The mark goes down. So remember, those bias downward. It is possible to put those in upside down and everything would still work, but the way it's supposed to be is it biases down. So again, if you don't see the added holes, it's dowels only. And on these, it's 3 of them, but the center one is a dowel. The others will take those pin bolts with the little bases, and we'll show how those go in a minute. So in setting these together, we're going to use the longer of those bolts, not the shorter ones. The bases are the same. What I do is we put the dowels in with a little mallet and then set them first, because once we press everything together, set the dowels first, we can just go up on the row, and one guy can be setting the dowels while the other guy goes after him and sets all the little fasteners in, or you could have a guy set them in and the third guy just run along tightening them if you're going to assembly line process this. So here things get a little tricky, because we're going to put the bottom in, and this is where it's a two-person job. We're doing one end, and then you really got to have somebody holding it while we do the other end. The top remains slightly flexible. We need that very slight flexibility in order to get the other bases in, but that's where it all starts to get really tricky. Alright, so the ladder can go either right or left orientation. And occasionally you got to force the wood one way or the other, because it might be slightly warped. Over here, what I can see is up top, I'm going to be forcing that wood over a little bit to overcome some warpage. This is where we use these double-ended attachments, and basically you're going to still use this, and then use your power driver for one of the slightly smaller. I think it's a 4 millimeter on the small end, 5 millimeter on the large end. A dowel goes lower, and then a turn lock goes here, and then over here you'll see how there's a smaller hole. That's what this will pass in through from the rear, and then the larger hole is on this base piece. You'll be able to tell because there's only one of these in the kit, but there's a trick to these, and the trick is you pass, we're going to line up this dowel right here. You pass the one in from the back. Let's see here. We'll pass that in. Whoops, sorry about that. We'll pass that in from the back. And this is where I'm kind of fighting against a little warpage here. So we're going to kind of work with this a little bit. But what it is we pass this in from the back, and then have this one. We pass that in from the back. So in these ladder rungs, you'll see there's a kind of a peg that goes on this end here. There's another one that passes all the way through. There's this and a shorter one. What this will do is this will go through the large hole here, but you don't want to work with that until you've already passed this one through here, because there's no wiggle room on it. The other thing that's going to happen here is sometimes this wood is slightly warped, and you'll have to kind of force it one way or the other in order to get everything to center up. So what you do is you pass a small one through first, get the larger one onto it because it's threaded on the inside, hold it with the 5 millimeter right here, and then tighten it with the impact. Okay, so when we get to these upper rails, there is something that happens. We kind of don't want all this hardware showing. So what you'll notice is one of these is marked blue and one's red. Now I can tell you that the blue always goes upper, the red always goes lower. It's a little tricky. It actually depends on whether you're doing a right or left side orientation on the ladder. So on this, what you'll do is you kind of look at what ends up happening on these ends, because they're all the same. See, over here, if we're going to build this in the other orientation, we'd be using these holes, right? So over here, what we do is we look at which one is the pass-through hole. That's going to be getting the bolt. The one which is not a pass-through hole is going to be getting the dowel. Now when they were drilled here, notice they were about the same size. So we never want to accidentally put a dowel in that hole, because it's going to be nearly impossible to get out. So always look for, this little thing here. You'll know that one shouldn't be getting a dowel. So when you set these up, we want to set them up in such a way that, see, one goes upper, one goes lower. We set them up in such a way that the turn lock won't be showing when we stand back and look at our furniture. And pretty close to the end. So basically, these reinforcements go in toward the end right before we put the mattresses on. One of the things to look out for, though, is when you're putting all these cross slats in, when you get to the end, you want to lay the last 2 or 3 in their space before you hammer the pegs in. And the bottom one of these, you really can't fit a power tool in to do that, so you'll still be using the little Z wrenches that come with the Ikea kit for that. But that's pretty much how it goes together.